I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Rakah Kodash. Double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. All right, so I want you to see these two women. One is European and the other one is an American. All right, and they're both speaking the spirit of what's gonna take place to Babylon the Great. Why the beast is gonna hate the whore. I'll get the scripture after I get the video, because if I leave the video, they'll cut off the recording. So I'm gonna let it play, and what you're gonna hear this woman, all right, say is that the corruption of America is so bad that it's better for them not to pretty much deal with the Americans, and they need to cut them off and not allow them to travel outside the borders of America to corrupt the world. All right, and I'm gonna play another woman after this where she's actually being interviewed. She's a actress, and she's being interviewed by Tucker Carlson, which I declared the Copyright Act, Section 107, which allows me the right to use copyright material to educate a audience, and I'm using this information to educate the Israelites of the biblical accuracy. All right.
Now we know exactly from recordings, video and photo materials of how this so-called Western elite
and you see she said Western elite. All right, so she's talking about America, all right, which really the elite rule the world. The Edomite, the so-called white race, the wicked, all right, they rule the world, okay? They're the wicked, and the earth has been given into the hand of the wicked. Job 9, verse 24. All right? But this is their own tongue falling upon their own head. And that the whore, America, the great whore, would be devoured by the beast, which is the European Union, which they have NATO together, but they're going to betray each other, and NATO is going to team up with the BRIC nations and the UN nations against the great whore, according to biblical prophecy.
Epstein materials, which were published during these days, give us a proof of how.
And a good way to know of the Western elite are the same as the elite that rule the world, the so-called white race. It's because you got the Rothschilds and Rockefellers. They're the same people, just they use those two different names, Rothschild out in Europe, and they use Rockefeller out here in the West. All right, but it's the same people, same bloodline, same nation. The wicked are the so-called Caucasians that rule the world, which are not white, they are red.
The Western elite treats children, including their own children.
See, she said even their own children. So now she's going to go into how the corruption of America is dangerous to the world.
Basically, they do not care any longer on what their fate will be, you see.
See, she said they don't care about their fate. All right, which this is a godless generation. Why? Because the wicked are ruling. The red devil the Bible speaks of has deceived the world, and there's no knowledge of Yahweh or his son Yahweh Shai, the God of Israel and the Savior of Israel. There's no knowledge of him because the wicked are ruling, and he's deceived the world.
How they treat them. Imagine those who for decades subjected kids to violence, and they did it en masse, involving more victims, underage children, and adults, using as an instigation tool their career promotion. That is who gives the Kiev regime immense funds to kill civilians, to kill children, to legalize in Ukraine, as Zelensky did in 2014, the so-called black transplantology. Body organs are being taken from people without their...
Which the transplants of the organs, they're stealing Israelite organs. The Israelites are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, which have been scattered throughout the world in slavery. And there's a blessing upon the Israelite, and they're trying to get it through drinking the blood and eating the flesh of the Israelites. They're replacing their organs with our organs, all right, hoping to get our strength, our power, because they are weak, all right, and we are strong. So there's a war against us that was in secret, but now it's being revealed, all right, and it's a spiritual war, being that the truth is coming out, and their whole system was built on goddamn lies because they are the devil, all right, the Bible speaks of.
Now,
all right.
And let me see.
Israel's expansionist project requires that neighboring countries be weakened militarily, technologically, economically, and socially, so that the Israeli regime permanently enjoys the upper hand. Under this project, Israel is free to expand its military arsenal without limits, including weapons of mass destruction that remain outside any inspection regime. Yet, other countries are demanded to disarm. Others are pressured to reduce defensive capacity.
And that's because the Edomite, which are the counterfeits in our land, in our promised land, they're the small hat counterfeit, and they are weak, all right? And we are strong by the power of Yahweh Ba'asham, Yahweh Shai. This is why they're building bunkers. This is why they want weapons of mass destruction. This is why they want other nations to reassign a confederacy with them against who? The Israelite. All right? Because they're losing their power. All right? And they're trying to get power, and they know their end is near. So it says in the prophecies of the Holy Scriptures that the devil come down with great wrath, knowing that they have but a short time. All right? Which they're going to go after Iran, which this man you see speaking, he's speaking for Iran, all right, which is the Persians, all right? And they're going to make war with the Babylonian Edomites, all right? That's going to be the Armageddon, where you see a mountain of troops build up over there in the valley of slaughter, Yahweh's Mashaphat, which he's going to judge these nations, Mashapayim, all right? And as Ezra said, when he saw the judgment, all he saw was dust and smoke, all right? And he said when he saw this, he was afraid, all right? And then the judgment for the great whore is that these other nations are going to shoot nuclear missiles on America. America is going to lose World War III. That is the prophecy of the Holy Scripture. the word of Yahweh, and Yahweh Shai, he is the word made flesh. And when he returns, all right, America will become a lake of fire. And they can't stop it. They're going to try to stop it even by murdering the prophets. But that's even going to shorten the days, which is already happening for the elect's sake, or no flesh would be saved. But it tells in the scriptures that you do no harm to his anointed. Just like there's a hedge around Esau, which, that's why if you destroy an Edomite, a so-called white man, they'll put you under the prison, right? They'll torture you to death in these prisons, right? Because there's a hedge around him. Well, that's the same thing for the elect, and our hedge is greater, all right, because we're superior, all right? So anyone that does harm to the elect Israel, all right, it tells you of a judgment which you're going to be destroyed by fire, which this whole fucking race, the Edomite, the so-called white race, has offended the Israelite, starting with the elect. So they're going to be destroyed, and we're going to be avenged by Yahweh's son, Yahweh Shai, returning from heaven.
Others are punished for scientific progress. Others are sanctioned for building resilience. Nobody should be confused. This is not arms control. It is not non-proliferation. It is not security. It is the enforcement of permanent inequality. Israel must have a military, intelligence, and strategic edge, and others must remain vulnerable.
Which they're afraid because this truth is coming out. That's the whole reason. All right, so this is Revelation 17, and this is pertaining to the judgment of the great whore, which is America, losing World War III. It says in Revelation 17, verse 16, and the 10 horns, which are the kings of the European Union, which thou sawest upon the beast is the European Union with their teeth, NATO, these shall hate the whore. But you just heard that lady from Europe saying, hey, all these people are corrupted. We need to, pretty much they're looking at Americans like zombies. They don't care about their fate. All right. So they hate the whore. And they're really looking at America side-eye, and they're going to team up with the BRICS and the UN, and they're going to pretty much do pest control and shoot nuclear missiles upon Babylon the Great whore. All right. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Which I even heard Putin, the Russian president, talking about America being like a Sodom and Gomorrah, and saying, look at Sodom and Gomorrah as a example of the future of America, which they have nuclear power. The Russian, which are the Medes, and Iran, which are the Persians. All right, and they're going to go against the Greeks and Romans, which are the American Edomites, which they had their allies, the European Union, which they had the beast system, which they used NATO, but now the world's pretty much going to team up against this system that is set up, the so-called white man system, and it's going to end with Babylon the Great being a nuclear lake of fire. All right. So let's go back to that video I had on YouTube. Here it is.
The insurance industry is in big trouble because just like BlackBerry got replaced by the iPhone, they're open
To see it. I want people.
Now let me go back. That's Roseanne from the Roseanne Show. All right, and she's talking to Tucker Carlson. Now I'm gonna let it play. Once again, I declared the Copyright Act of Section 107 giving me the right to use copyright material for educational purposes, and I'm using this material to educate the Israelite of the Bible's accuracy today in 2026 according to prophecy.
Many victims. There are so many victims. There are so many children victims that are now adults. The epidemic in America is child abuse, and I just want people to see it. I want people to open up their eyes and see how prevalent and horrible it is. 1 of 3 girls, 1 of 4 boys in this.
So that's what she's telling you, the statistics, but it's really worse than that because it's one big experiment. All right? It's called the American experiment. All right? So everyone in America is being experimented on. American experiment. And they're doing this outside too in other places where they have their military bases and they're controlling, and really it's the world. They're doing it to the world because who sits over these other nations is America. Meaning, it says the American experiment refers to the historic, ongoing, and at its founding, unprecedented attempt to establish a nation based on Enlightenment, Illuminati principles, self-governance, which that's Satan, do as thou wilt, and individual liberty, rather than monarchy or tyranny, which now you have a crew lord, right? Nero 47, the king of Babylon, and the Lord's going to end your kingdom, all right, in tyranny, all right? And it's going to be judged at the return of Yahushua, and the judgment is the nuclear destruction. Let me grab that in Isaiah 14. And I'll just get to the point. Let me switch it over to the NLT so you can see the word tyranny. It says, verse 3, in that wonderful day when Yahweh gives his people, the Israelite, the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian, which been oppressed in America, rest from sorrow and fear, from slavery and chains, you will taunt the king of Babylon, you will say, which Nero 47, all right, is the king of Babylon. The mighty man has been destroyed. Yes, your insolence, which is a disobedient, right, because they're inferior and we're superior. So they're being disobedient to us. Instead of surrendering and submitting to us, and going into slavery under us, which is just, they make weapons of mass destruction and they want to destroy us. They want to murder us because we are calling upon the name of Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai. So when they go into slavery, we're going to mock them. All right, because they think right now that they're going to murder us, but they're going to end up in slavery under us. And we're going to mock them for those thoughts and those plans that they intend to try to carry out in these last days against us. It says, yes, your insolence is ended, for Yahweh has crushed your wicked power, which is happening. That's why the truth is coming out, and broken your evil rule, which Lucifer, all right, which is the kingdom of Satan, America, the kingdom of Edom, the wicked that have corrupted the world, all right, your kingdom falls in 1 day and 1 hour. It's going to be turned into a nuclear lake of fire by nuclear ICBMs. You struck the people with endless blows of rage and held the nations in your angry grip with unrelenting tyranny. See, so you're terrorizing the earth with your power, and you're gonna forfeit the throne to the Israelites, which Yahweh Shai is coming to give the heathen into the hands of the Israelites. It says in 2nd Ezra 15 and 10, behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, which America is Egypt, spiritual Egypt. Look at the back of the dollar, look at the symbols at the capitals. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm. So he's going to send Yahweh Shai in the host of heaven and smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof, which ancient Egypt exists. This is talking about a future Egypt, which we're living in today, America, the great whore, which is going to be destroyed. It says in verse 14, woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword, which is the wicked, the so-called white race, and their destruction draweth nigh. This is why they're trying to disarm certain countries. And one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. So there's going to be war, in the streets of America and throughout the world. All right, it's going to be a world war. All right, and it's going to end with America being a lake of fire, nuclear fire, by ICBM nuclear missiles shot by its allies, the European Union, and UN teaming up with the BRIC nations against this whore. And there's going to be a mountain of troops that are gathered in the valley of Jehoshaphat, where the Lord will mashapayim all these military men of the heathen. And once again, in 2nd Ezra 13, when he saw this, he said he was afraid, because there was nothing left but dust and smoke. So 2nd Ezra 13, this is talking about when Yahweh Shai returns. He returns from the east to the west. It says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest. So Yahweh Shai and the angels are going to shoot fire from the chariots that they ride upon, which you know as so-called UFOs. At the same time, there's going to be nuclear destruction of Babylon the Great. And fell with violence upon the multitude, which was prepared to fight, which they're already being prepared. That's why they're being called to the Middle East, so-called Middle East, right? They're talking about a draft, all right, because they're going to send all these troops into that land, and they're going to be destroyed there, all right? It says, and burn them up every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. And Esau's afraid. All right? Esau's afraid right now because that's his judgment. All his military might that he trusted in, which he was able to take the earth with violence, he's going to lose in a moment. And then his kingdom, America, which he was able to use to corrupt the world, right? Because he had enslaved the Israelites just like they done in Egypt. They have done it here. Even the stone they used to build the capitals, that goes back to the ancient Egypt pyramids. They were built out of the same stone, which that stone shows you what these pyramids and what they're doing with these buildings is their bunkers. And they use that stone to preserve, in the ancient world, food, all right, because it killed bacteria. And they used those pyramids for bunkers for rich men. Today, you have these rich men building billionaire bunkers because they're going to be judged, And the ones that are preserved in the bunkers are the ones that are going to go into slavery first. All right, because they're going to be preserved in these bunkers outside of America, and they're going to be enslaved, all right, by the Israelites, because we're going to receive new bodies which do not die, and we're going to live forever, and the heathen are going to first be our slaves and then our tributaries. The Edomites will be made extinct after 1,000 years of slavery, but the other nations will continue to live and die, but they will serve Yahweh Bahasham, Yahushai, by serving the Israelites as tributaries, which they're not only going to give us resources, the best that they produce, but also themselves, all right, to serve us. And they're going to enjoy serving us, because under us, the earth is going to be righteous and prosperous and peaceful. Under the wicked, which is the wicked Edomite, the so-called white race, all right, the earth is increasing in violence, and soon it will be judged. The flood that took place during the time of Noah, that was the first death. The nuclear destruction of Babylon the Great, which is going to shake the earth, is the second death. Shalom to the elect of the nation of Israel, wa abal babal.